So, I talked to your peers yesterday, and there was a consensus that that you guys wanted me to create a study guide, but then there'd be practice problem for you to practice. So, I'm gonna make this very clear. This is not to be turned into me. This is strictly just if you want to practice and do well on the exam. So, you can do this if you want to, you don't have to, but this is just some practice to prepare you guys for your test, and it will be on Friday now. I am going to change it on Google Classroom that your test will be on Friday now, okay? So, again, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. This is strictly just if you want to practice for the test. So, I broke it up, your study guide. I just broke it up into the different titles, topics, and then this number right here reflects how many questions are on your test. So for the first one, you're going to solve this quadratic equation with complex solutions. So what you guys want to do is you want to use your quadratic formula. So your A value is 1, B is -6, and C is 13. So plug that into your formula. So x is equal to negative of -6 plus or minus -6 to the second power minus 4 times your A value times your C, all over 2A, which is 2 times 1. Simplify that, so we get 6 plus or minus 36 minus 52 all over 2, which is 6 plus or minus -16 over 2. Okay, so we're going to move over here. That square root of -16. Oh, it's lagging somewhat. I'm going to wait. But you guys are going to see that once this shows up, you're going to get 6 plus or minus square root of -16 all over 2. So what you guys want to do is you guys want to take the square root of that -16. Now, there's a negative sign on the inside, right? So 6 plus or minus, and it's going to be square root of, you take out the negative sign and you put it on the outside, and now it's an I. And then 6 plus or minus square root of 16 is 4. I all over 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And there is your answer. Okay. And again, this is also Khan Academy. So if you look in Khan Academy, you guys can find practice problems there as well. 2. X squared minus 2x plus 10 is equal to 0. So this one, our A is equal to 1, your B is equal to -2, and your C is equal to 10. So x is going to equal to negative of -2 plus or minus -2 to the second minus 4 times your A times your C all over 2 times A, which is 1. Okay, so 4 plus or minus -2 squared is 4. -4 times 1 times 10, -40 all over 2. So 4 plus or minus square root of -36 all over 2. That square root of -36 is, you take the negative on the outside, and now it's I all over 2. So then it's 4 plus or minus 6I all over 2, which is 2 plus or minus 3I. And that's your answer. Okay, so one problem like that. Alright, multiplying complex numbers. So you guys have to know your I, and you have to know your you have to just multiply. So I'm going to drag this down a little bit lower. Okay, so here we go. Gotta multiply this, the red first, to both. And then you multiply the green. So red first and then the green. So when you do the red, you do 3 times 5, which is 15. 3 times negative 3i is negative 9i. Now we're doing the first green one. 2i times 5 is 10i. 2i times negative 3i. So do each part first, okay? Break it up. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. I times I, not 2i, I to the second power. Now, I to the second power, you guys, if you guys recall, I to the second is equal to negative 1. So, what we really have is 15 minus 9i plus 10i minus 6, and I squared is negative 1. 15 minus 9i plus 10i plus 6, because negative 6 times negative 1 is 6. Now we can just combine like terms. 15 plus 6, those are like terms, so 21. And these are like terms. These two are like terms. So that's I. Negative 9i plus 10i, I. Okay. Same deal. I'm going to drag my arrows over. Oh, well, I should just copy them. Okay, never mind. I'm just going to go for it. Alright, so here we go. That one gets distributed to both. And then this one, negative 6i, gets distributed to both. So we're doing the red first. 1 times negative 2, negative 2. 1 times negative 4i, negative 4i. Negative 6i times negative 2 is 12i, and we got negative 6 times negative 4i. So negative 6 times negative 4 is plus 24. I times I to the second. Remember, I to the second becomes negative 1. So then we got negative 2 minus 4i plus 12i plus 24 times negative 1, which is negative 2 minus 4i. I'm just rewriting it. 24 times negative 1 is negative 24. Collect like terms. These are the same. And these are the same type of term. So you can combine those. Negative 2 minus 24 is negative 26. Negative 4i plus 12i plus 8i. So 4 problems like that. Adding and subtracting. Okay, so first we gotta distribute the I to both of these. And we gotta distribute this negative 1 to both of these on the inside. So we're gonna get I times 2, 2i, I times 3i. So it's gonna be 3i squared, but remember I squared is negative 1, so it's gonna be minus 3. Negative times 1 is negative 1. Negative times negative 5i is plus 5i. Collect like terms, so we're going to get negative 4. That's from the negative 3 minus 1. 2i plus 5i, 7i. Okay. Next one. The only thing we have to distribute here is this negative sign to both of these. So we're going to get 2 plus 7i. Just drop it down. Negative times 3. Negative 3. Negative times negative 6i. 6i. Collect like terms. 2 minus 3 is negative 1. 7i plus 6i. 13i. 3 problems of adding and subtracting. Okay, so here's powers of imaginary, you guys. Now, if you guys recall, you have this, right? I is equal to I. I squared is equal to negative 1, I to the third is equal to negative I to the fourth is equal to 1. So remember, if you have a power, and that power could be divisible by 4 evenly with no remainder, then it would just be that. So for example, does everyone see that I to the fourth is equal to 1, right? Can 4 go into 20? So 20 divided by 4, it goes in 5 times, right? With 0 remainder. So since there's no remainder, that means that I to the 20, you guys, is the same thing as 1, because there's no remainder. So it's going to be 7. So the next one, right? So let's look at 14. So 14, divide that into 4, you're going to get, well, 3 and 2. So you have a remainder of 2, which means this 2 will be the power to your I. So 6i to the second power. But what is I to the second power? That's negative 1. So 6 times negative 1, which is negative 6. Okay, 2i squared. Well, 4 can't go into 2, so all we have is this. So I squared is negative 1, so 2 times negative 1, which is negative 2. Okay, how many times, for number 10, how many times does 4 go into 29? Well, goes in 7 times. Remainder of 1, so that means it's going to be 20i to the first. And I to the first is just I, so 20i. Okay, so you guys are gonna have to know your I units, which is this right there. Okay, moving on. All right, quadratics by factoring. So you guys are gonna be solving for quadratics by factoring. So when it says solving quadratics, you guys, that means you're finding your x value, you're finding your x-intercepts, roots, zeros. Those all mean relatively the same thing. So for this one, when it says quadratics by factoring, solve for this. Well, set it equal to 0. And now, let's solve for it by factoring. The top is negative 21. The bottom is the middle term for negative 4. Two things that multiply to negative 21 but added together gives you negative 4. That's negative 7 and 3. 0 equals x minus 7, x plus 3. And you are not done. All you did was factor, right? Now you guys have to solve for x. So set both of these equal to 0. Set both of them equal to 0. So 0 is equal to x minus 7, or 0 is equal to x plus 3. So x is going to equal to 7, or x is going to equal to negative 3. So 7 or negative 3 is your answer. Okay, let's go to this next one. Okay, first thing is it has to equal to 0. So when we're solving, we're finding your x-intercepts, roots, or zeros. Now, does everyone see this 6, right? Since there's a coefficient in front of your leading term, you have to think now, well, can 6 go into these two numbers? And yes, it can. So 0 is equal to, factor out a 6 from all those, 6 out of x squared plus 180 divided by 6 is 30. 1200 divided by 6 is 200. And now factor what's on the inside of the parenthesis. On top is 200, bottom is 30. Two things that multiply to 200 but add together gives you 30. That's 20 and 10. So 0 is equal to 6 times x plus 20, x plus 10. Set both of those in parentheses equal to 0. So 0 is equal to x plus 20. Disregard the 6. And 0 is equal to x plus 10. Solve. So x is going to equal to negative 20 or x is going to equal to negative 10. And those are your two answers. Okay, if you guys look at 13, well, what's different about 13? Well, there's two things that are on the equal sign, right? But again, in order for you guys to solve for your quadratics, you have to always set it equal to 0. So that's why I wrote this down for you guys, because it says two of them are not going to equal to 0. So you're going to have two problems where you guys have to set it equal to 0. So I'm going to move this to the left. So I'm going to subtract 5x to both sides first. And then I'm going to add 12 to both sides, so that my equation is equal to 0. Now from here, we could finally factor. And I'm going to do it up here. So top 36, bottom negative 15. So two things that multiply to 36, but added gives you negative 15. That's going to be negative 12 and negative 3. So x minus 12, x minus 3 is equal to 0. Now set both of them equal to 0, so x minus 12 equals 0 or x minus 3 equals 0. And the two answers you guys are going to get is 12 or 3. So you're going to have 6 problems like that where you guys, okay? Alright, quadratic formula. Let me bring back our formula so you guys can see. Okay, so remember, quadratic formula, set it equal to 0, right? So 14's already set it equal to 0, so all we have to do is just solve. So a is 1, b is negative 1, and c is negative 4. And now let's plug it into the quadratic formula. Negative 1 plus or minus negative 1 to the second minus 4 times 1 times your c all over 2a. So negative times negative 1, that's 1 plus or minus 1. Negative 1 squared is 1. Negative 4 times 1 times negative 4 is 16 all over 2. So you guys are going to get 1 plus or minus square root of 17 over 2. Nothing can simplify, so that's going to be your answer. 15, set it equal to 0 first, right? Minus 18 to both sides. 8x squared minus 4x minus 18 is equal to 0. So your a value is 8, your b value is negative 4, and your c value is negative 18. Now we're going to plug it into your quadratic formula. So x is equal to negative of negative 4 plus or minus negative 4 to the second minus 4 times your a, which is 8, times your c, which is negative 18, all over 2a, which is 2 times 8. So 4 plus or minus negative 4 squared is 16. Negative 4 times 8 times 18 is 576 all over 16. 4 plus or minus, add 16 to this, and we get 592. And square root of 592. Okay, so now what we do here is we see if we can simplify that square root of 592. So we're going to get, well, 592, it could be divisible by 4. It could be divisible by 8. So 592, you guys, can be divisible by 16. So if you guys did a tree for that, you guys would see this is where you simplify your square roots, right? So 16 and 37. This breaks down to 4 and 4. 2, 2, 2, 2. And remember, when you guys simplify your square roots, right, you try to find your pairs. Here's a pair there, and there's a pair there. The pairs come on the outside of the square root. So 4 plus or minus 2 coming from the first pair, another 2 coming from the other pair, square root of 37 all over 16. So it's equal to 4 plus or minus 4 square root of 37 all divided by 16. You could divide a 4 into all three of these terms, so then your final answer is going to be 1 plus or minus square root of 37 all over 4. On the test, it won't be this challenging, but this is some good information when you guys do have to simplify your guys' square roots. If you have a square root like this one, you guys have to simplify it in order to make sure that stuff can cancel, possibly. So if you have a square root, make sure it's in simplified form. Alright, this one, remember, set it equal to 0. So set it equal to 0. 9x squared minus 6x minus 11 equals 0. Okay, so your a is 1, b is negative 6, your c is negative 11. Now we could use quadratic formula. So x is going to equal to negative 6 plus or minus negative 6 to the second minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So we're going to get 6 plus or minus 36 plus 44 all over 2. 6 plus or minus 36 plus 44 is 80. Now you guys have to see if you can simplify that square root of 80. So square root of 80, 10 and 8, 2 and 5, 4 and 2, 2 and 2. So can you guys find pairs? I certainly can. Here's a pair of 2's right there, and here's a pair of 2's right there. So we are going to have 6 plus or minus 1 pair of 2's right here, and this one's from the other pair of 2's, and the leftover was 5. So square root of 5 all over 2. So then we get 6 plus or minus 4 square root of 5 over 2. All of these could be divisible by 2. So final answer is 3 plus or minus 2 square root of 5. Okay, quadratic formula. Alright, graphing quadratics using standard form. Alright, so when you guys do this type of problem, so they're going to give you guys standard form, and what you guys have to do is be able to recognize the graph. So in order to do this problem, well, there's several ways you guys can do it, but one way you guys could do it is find your factors. So set it equal to 0. Factor that, so 3 and negative 4, so we get negative 3 and negative 1. Okay, so what are your zeros? Solve for this. X-intercepts, what are your roots? Well, you have to solve by setting both equal to 0. So x is going to equal 3, x is going to equal 1. These are your guys' x-intercepts, zeros, and roots. So I'm going to plot those. 1 is right there. 3 is right there. And now, to find your guys' vertex, right? X is equal to negative b over 2a. So our b is negative 4. So negative of negative 4 all over 2a, which is 2 times 1. 4 over 2, 2. So our vertex is x value is 2, and then to get your y, you just plug it in. So to get the y, you guys just plug in 2 into your original equation. And then we solve. 4 minus 8 plus 3, we're going to get negative 1. So the vertex is 2 comma negative 1. 2 comma negative 1 right there. And there's your guys' graph. Okay. Now, this area right here, you guys, there are going to be a couple of these questions that you're not going to be able to get, so I am going to automatically curve your test because it hasn't been things we go over, but there are probably half of those you can do and half of them will be challenging, so you know, if you get them right, then you get them right, but if not, then just know that there's at least a 3-question curve, so you guys will have to deal with those, okay? Just do your best. Okay, this one, for 18, there's going to give you a graph, and you guys just have to find the zeros. So, zeros, roots, x-intercepts of this, right, is right there and right there, which is that x is equal to -1 and x is equal to 2. Then lastly, it's completing the square, you guys. So, to complete the square, you guys just take the middle term, you half it, and then you square it. So, x squared plus 20x plus half of 20 is 10, right? But then you have to half it and then raise it to the second power. So half of 20 is 10. 10 to the second power, what is that? 100. That's how you guys complete the square. So for this one, well, you got x squared minus 2x. Half of -2 is -1, and raise that to the second. So we get 1. Okay, so that's how you guys complete this square. And that's it. So practice as much as you want, you guys. Again, this is not to be turned in. It's just your responsibility if you want to do this or not. Okay? Come into Zoom if you guys have questions. And again, test is on Friday. All right? Peace.